Shanghai in 1932 was a city that wore other people's coats and sweated through all of them. The Bund glittered in borrowed confidence, granite banks and brass rails and flags that snapped like they owned the wind, while a few streets inland the air turned to coal smoke, frying oil and the sour breath of fear. Beyond the neat boundary stones, in districts that didn't show up on a tourist's map unless they were looking for trouble, the Japanese shells had been falling since late January, and even in the international settlement you could taste the war if you licked your teeth. There were too many uniforms in Shanghai that spring, blue tunics of the Shanghai Municipal Police with their tidy whistles, khaki of foreign marines posted for the protection of nationals, grey-green Japanese, and the ragged earth colors of Chinese troops who looked like they'd been carved from exhaustion and stubbornness. A man could cross 3 jurisdictions in the length of a cigarette and become 3 different kinds of innocent depending on who stopped him. I made my living on that seam, a bilingual detective with a British name on my card and a Chinese name on my bones, and it paid well enough to keep my office on a second floor off Nanking Road, where I could watch rickshaws weave like fish and hear the tram bell argue with the street hawkers. It was late afternoon when Inspector Hargreaves came up my stairs. He didn't knock so much as announce himself with the weight of his boots, British habit, as if doors were suggestions and the world belonged to the Empire by default. He was a hard man in a soft city, which meant he had learned to be hard in ways that were mostly paperwork and favors. His face always looked freshly scrubbed, not because he was clean, but because he believed in appearing so. "Lin," he said, like my name was a tool he'd once misplaced. "Victor Lin." He glanced at my desk, the cheap fan, the case files stacked like tired men. "You still keep the revolver where any idiot can reach it. Any idiot who comes through my door uninvited deserves what he finds," I said. The distant thump of something heavy, artillery or demolition, Shanghai didn't bother to clarify anymore, rolled through the window glass. Hargreaves didn't flinch. "We've got a body. Shen Guangyuan, textile man, silk, mills out near the creek, office on the Bund. He's in the settlement, which makes him our problem." "You've got policemen," I said. "You've got 6 sergeants who can smell a lie at 20 paces. Why climb my stairs?" His eyes shifted, a small betrayal. "Because it's Chinese business with foreign edges. Because Shen did business with half the shipping firms on the river, and the other half did business with him. Because there's a complication." "Complications don't walk into my office," I said. "They usually arrive in envelopes." He tossed a thin folder onto my desk. It landed with the soft slap of money nearby. "You'll be paid. You'll also be watched. Don't mistake this for freedom, Lin." He hesitated, as if weighing whether to give me the next piece. Hargreaves was a man who counted information the way bankers counted silver. "He was killed with silk," he said finally, and that was the first time his clean face showed anything like discomfort. "Red silk." He watched me for a reaction. I didn't give him one because reactions were currency too, and I'd learned to be stingy. "Take me to him," I said. The Bund at dusk looked like a postcard someone had dipped in smoke. The river was the color of tarnished pewter, crowded with sampans and the black hulks of steamers that seemed to crouch like animals, waiting for orders. Across the water, warehouses squatted under a sky bruised by industrial haze. A Japanese gunboat sat farther down, its silhouette sharp, as if drawn in ink. Foreign guards at the building entrance snapped to attention for Hargreaves. For me, they hesitated, searching my face for the category that would tell them whether to salute or sneer. I gave them my best neutral expression and walked through anyway. Shen's office was on the 3rd floor, a suite with polished wood and the kind of sober luxury that said, "respectable profits." The smell hit me first. Not blood, not the crude iron tang you get in alley murders, but perfume, expensive and heavy. And then, under it, the faint sweetness of raw silk and dye. Shen lay on his back beside his desk, his collar torn, his eyes half open as if he'd been surprised by his own death. Around his neck was a length of red silk, knotted with a neatness that belonged to someone who tied knots for a living. It wasn't a scarf, it was a strip cut from a bolt, the edges still crisp. The silk had bitten into the skin enough to leave a dark band, but it hadn't torn. Silk doesn't tear when it's used correctly, it persuades. No gun, Hargreaves said. No struggle worth mentioning. A bit of overturned ink, a broken pen. He was a strong man, but whoever did this knew how. I crouched beside the body, careful not to touch anything I didn't have to. Shen's hands were clenched. Under the nails of his right hand, almost invisible unless you looked like you expected the world to hide things, was a single thread. Red, but with a darker twist through it, like a shadow running alongside. I took my handkerchief, teased it free, and held it up. "You have a coroner?" I asked. "Dr. McKinnon's on his way," Hargreaves said. "I kept the scene closed." "How charitable," I murmured. I looked around. The office was tidy, too tidy. A safe in the wall stood open. Papers were scattered in a way that tried too hard to look like a frantic search. Shen's desk blotter had been lifted and replaced slightly off-center. Whoever did it had time, or had authority, or both. "What's missing?" I asked. Hargreaves frowned. "His clerk says a ledger, one of his private ledgers. Not the accounts the taxmen see, the one with samples." "Samples," I repeated. In the silk trade, samples weren't just cloth. They were promises. They were proofs. They were sometimes bribes, stitched into envelopes and sent to the right wives. Who found him? "A clerk, Chen Da-King. Came in early. Shen was meant to meet a shipping agent at 7. I studied Shen's face. He wasn't old, maybe mid-40s, hair slicked back, the kind of man who could look at a loom and see money. There was a faint purple bruise on his cheekbone, like the memory of a fist. A ring lay beside his hand, gold with a green stone. Jade. The ring looked expensive enough to buy a week of rice for a block. It had been pulled off, not dropped. "You're telling me a clerk walked in on his boss, strangled with silk, and then had the presence of mind to note which ledger was missing," I said. "Clerks notice what pays them," Hargreaves said. "You do too." Who else had access? Shen's people, his mistress maybe, his wife definitely. Hargreaves's mouth tightened. And anyone who could pay the doorman or scare him. "In Shanghai," I said. "Those are the same people." Hargreaves stepped closer. "There's pressure from above," he said quietly. "The municipal council doesn't want trouble, not now. The Japanese are looking for any excuse to claim the settlement is unsafe. The Chinese are looking for any excuse to say we shelter criminals. And Shen," he swallowed the rest. He was connected. "Connected to whom?" I asked. "To commerce," Hargreaves said, and that was an answer designed to look like an answer while hiding the real one. I turned my attention back to the red silk. It wasn't plain. Woven into it, barely visible unless the light caught it, was a pattern. Small repeating motifs like stylized waves, interrupted every so often by a different symbol, a kink in the rhythm. Not decorative, intentional. "This isn't a scarf," I said. "This is a message." Hargreaves's eyes narrowed. "That's what I thought you might say." Dr. McKinnon arrived with the scent of antiseptic and weariness. He confirmed what we already knew. Death by strangulation. Likely from behind, quick if done properly. He knew his killer, McKinnon added, straightening. Or at least he didn't expect violence from them. There's no defensive wounds worth noting. "So it wasn't a street thug," I said. "Street thugs use knives," McKinnon said. "Silk is theatrical. Shanghai's full of theater," I said. Hargreaves pulled me aside near the window. Outside, the river carried lights like spilled coins. "I want you to find that ledger," he said, "and I want you to find who tied the knot." "And if I find one without the other?" I asked. "Bring me what you have," he said. "Don't play hero. Heroes get buried in foreign cemeteries where no one speaks their name correctly." He paused. "And Lin, keep away from the French clubs." "Why?" "Because this has already been there," he said, and his gaze slid away again, a tell. I didn't need him to name the place. The smell of perfume at the scene had already told me. Shanghai's perfume traveled in only a few circles, and one of them sang. I left the bund with the thread in my pocket and the pattern in my head. The streets were crowded with refugees again, faces like torn paper, bundles tied in cloth. A woman sold hot sweet potatoes from a brazier, her hands cracked. A group of young men in student caps handed out pamphlets near a corner, watched by a Sikh policeman whose moustache looked like it had opinions. The pamphlets were in Chinese, bold characters about resistance and dignity. and the men's eyes were too bright with hunger for something other than food. When they saw my gaze, one of them held out a leaflet. I shook my head. He smiled like he understood more than I wanted him to. "We all choose, Xiansheng," he said softly, "sooner or later." I walked on. Shen's mills were out near Suqiao Creek, in an area where the city's neatness broke down into warehouses, tenements, and the kind of narrow streets that turned men into shadows. The creek had been a line of trade for decades, and now it was also a line of war. Sandbags and barricades rose near bridges, and the air carried the bitter stink of burnt timber from Jabei, where Japanese shells had chewed whole blocks into ash. I took a rickshaw as far as the boundary where the settlement's order ended, and the Chinese city's improvisation began. Past that, I walked, keeping my hands visible and my eyes busy. A Chinese patrol, boys with rifles too big for their shoulders, stopped me, asked for my papers. I showed them my pass from the settlement, a little piece of extraterritorial arrogance stamped with official ink. The leader spat to the side, not at me, but at what I represented. "Be careful," he said. "Japanese planes came yesterday." "They come every day," I said. "That's why I'm careful." The mill compound had its own gates, guarded by men in plain clothes with the unmistakable bulge of weapons under their jackets. Not police, not soldiers. Shen's private security or someone else's. Inside, the noise of looms was a constant, a metallic thunder that made conversation feel like shouting into a storm. Silk workers moved with quick, practiced hands, faces drawn. The foreman, a thin man with a pen behind his ear, led me to a small office where Chen Da-King waited. Chen was in his late 20s, hair neatly parted, spectacles that tried to make him look harmless. His hands were stained faintly with dye, the kind of detail that made him either diligent or deliberately theatrical. He rose as I entered. "Detective Lin," he said in careful English, then switched to Chinese. "Thank you for coming." "I didn't come for thanks," I said in Chinese. "Tell me about the ledger." Chen's throat bobbed. "The sample ledger," he said. "It was special." "Special how?" He hesitated. I let the loom noise fill the space until he couldn't stand the silence. "Mr. Shen kept it locked," Chen said finally. "Not because of money, but because of names." "Names of buyers?" I asked. "Names of partners," Chen said, and his eyes flicked to the door. "People who prefer not to be written down." "And yet they were written down," I said. "In code," Chen said, almost whispering. "In patterns and colors, in the sequence of samples. Mr. Shen said it was safer. If the book was found, it would look like cloth." "But someone wanted it badly enough to strangle him with his own product," I said. Chen's face tightened. "He had enemies," he said. "The war has made everyone an enemy. The Japanese demand cooperation, the Chinese demand donations, the gangs demand protection, and the foreign firms demand lower prices while they sip gin and pretend shells don't exist." That last line carried a bitterness that didn't belong to a clerk. I watched him. "Who came to see Shen recently?" Chen swallowed. "A foreign shipping agent," he said. "A Japanese man who spoke English with an American accent. He called himself Mr. Sato." "And?" "And a woman," Chen said, and I felt the floor shift under me the way it does when a familiar ghost walks into the room. "A singer. From the French Concession." Chen looked at me as if expecting me to deny it. "She came last week. She and Mr. Shen spoke privately. He was agitated afterward." "Name," I said. Chen hesitated again, then Lian Hong. But on stage she uses another. Lola, Ruby, Red. Names were costumes in Shanghai, and she had always worn hers like she was born in them. I kept my face still. "Where did she meet him?" "At the mill," Chen said. "In his private room. She brought a bolt of red silk as a gift." "Did she leave with the ledger?" I asked. Chen looked offended, or perhaps frightened. "No," he said quickly. "She left empty-handed. Mr. Shen put the bolt in the safe." He gestured weakly. "Now it is gone too." A bolt of red silk, a strip of red silk used as a garrote, a pattern woven into it like a secret. My pocket suddenly felt heavier with the thread I'd taken from Shen's nail. "Tell me about Shen," I said. "Not the businessman, the man." Chen's expression softened in a way that surprised me. "He was two men," Chen said. One who paid the gangs and the Japanese and the officials and smiled, and one who stayed late and listened to the machines and talked about the workers as if they were his children. He said Shanghai was being sold piece by piece, and he wanted to buy back at least a corner. Buy it back for whom? I asked. Chen's eyes flicked again. For China, he said. It was a word that could mean patriotism, politics, or simply survival. It was also a word that got men killed. I left the mill with more questions than answers and the sense of being watched. Outside, the air was colder, the sky low. A pair of men stood across the street near a tea stall, smoking. They weren't mill workers. Their shoes were too good, their posture too relaxed. One of them had a faint scar along his jaw that looked like it had been earned in a room where rules were negotiable. When I glanced their way, they looked away with practiced indifference. I walked past them, turned down a side street, then doubled back through an alley that smelled of cabbage and damp. The men followed, not in a hurry. In Shanghai, you didn't run unless you wanted to be chased. I slowed, let them close the distance, and then stepped into a doorway as if I belonged there. When the first man passed, I slipped behind him and pressed the muzzle of my revolver into the soft place under his ribs. "Who sent you?" I said in Chinese. He stiffened, then let out a laugh that tried to be casual and came out wrong. "Easy, Xiansheng," he said. "We're admirers." "I don't perform," I said. The second man turned, saw the gun, raised his hands. "We just want to talk," he said in accented Chinese. "Then talk," I said. The first man's breath smelled of anise. "Brother Knife sends greetings," he said, and my stomach tightened. Brother Knife, Dao Ge, wasn't a man. He was a function like tax or rain. He worked for the Green Gang, the syndicate that ran opium, gambling, labor rackets, and half the unofficial government of Shanghai. "Tell Brother Knife I don't take greetings," I said. "I take money." The man's grin sharpened. "Money will come," he said. "But first, advice. Stop looking into Shen. The ledger is not for foreigners, not for police. It is for people who understand Shanghai." "Does Brother Knife understand Shanghai?" I asked. "Or does he just own pieces of it?" The man's grin faltered. He glanced at the doorway behind me as if expecting someone else. "We are being polite," he said. "If you continue, politeness ends." "Politeness never began," I said, and shoved him away. They backed off, but their eyes promised future trouble. I walked toward the settlement boundary with the feeling of a net tightening. By the time I reached my office, the sky had turned the color of old newspaper, and the street lamps were coughing light. The envelope waiting on my desk wasn't from Hargreaves. It had no stamp, no return address. Just my English name, Mr. Victor Lin, written in a hand that had once traced that name on my skin. I stared at it for a long moment, then opened it. Inside was a single swatch of red silk, folded neatly. The pattern was the same as the strip around Shen's neck, waves interrupted by small symbols. On the back of the swatch, in pencil, 2 words, "Tonight, Joffrey." Avenue Joffrey was in the French Concession, a boulevard of plane trees, cafes, and a kind of lawlessness that wore lipstick. Hargreaves had told me to keep away from French clubs, which meant he expected me to go, which meant he was either testing me or setting me up. Shanghai was full of men who thought they were clever. The clever ones survived by assuming everyone else was clever too. I went anyway. The French Concession at night was a different Shanghai, a city that pretended it was Paris and sometimes almost convinced itself. The sidewalks were crowded with Europeans in summer suits, white Russian women in furs that looked like they'd been pawned and repurchased a dozen times, Chinese merchants with gold watches, Japanese businessmen with careful smiles. French policemen lounged at corners, their kepis tilted, looking bored in the way men do when they know boredom is safer than curiosity. I walked past cafes where couples argued in low voices, past a bakery where the smell of bread made the war feel like a rumor. The club was called Le Papillon Rouge, the red butterfly, an unsubtle name in a city where subtlety had been dead for years. From outside you could hear the muffled throb of jazz, the kind imported from America and adulterated with Shanghai's own restless pulse. A doorman in a tuxedo looked me over, recognized money or danger, and let me in. Inside, smoke hung like a second ceiling. The band on stage was mixed: an American trumpet, a Filipino drummer, a Chinese pianist, playing something that tried to sound cheerful and failed. Tables were crowded, glasses sweating. On the walls, mirrors made the room look twice as full and twice as dishonest. And there, under a spotlight that made her look like a confession, was Lian Hong. She had changed her hair since I'd last seen her. Shorter, waved in the European style, but her face was the same impossible blend of softness and steel. She wore a red silk dress that clung to her like an accusation. When she sang, the room quieted, not because it was polite, but because it wanted to believe the song could drown out the distant guns. She saw me halfway through the second verse. Her eyes didn't widen. They didn't soften. They simply acknowledged me the way a knife acknowledges the hand that once held it. When the song ended, applause rose like forced laughter. She stepped off stage without a glance. A waiter approached me with a note on a small tray, as if delivering dessert. I took it. "Back room," it said. "Don't bring a shadow." I didn't have to look to know I had one. The Green Gang men had made sure of that, and Hargreaves had his own watchers. In Shanghai, you could be alone only in a crowd, and even then only if you'd paid the crowd. I moved through the room casually as if heading for the lavatory, then slipped through a side door when a group of drunken businessmen blocked the sightline. The back corridor smelled of cleaning alcohol and stale roses. I pushed open a door and found her in a small dressing room, lit by a single bulb. She was taking off her gloves. Up close, I could see the fatigue under her powder, the small crease between her brows that hadn't been there when we were younger and believed time could be negotiated. She didn't smile. "Victor," she said in English, and the way she said it was a test. I answered in Chinese. "Hong." She flinched almost imperceptibly. "Don't call me that," she said in Chinese. "That name belongs to someone who believed you." The room felt smaller. I leaned against the doorframe, keeping my hands visible. "You sent the silk," I said. "I didn't know you still read your mail," she replied. "I didn't know you still cared who died," I said, and immediately regretted it because her eyes sharpened like glass. "Shen Guangyuan," she said, "a man who sold silk to foreigners and called it patriotism, a man who smiled at gangsters and pretended he was different." "He's dead," I said, "strangled with red silk. His ledger is missing." "I know," she said, and there was something in her voice that could have been sorrow or calculation. "Then tell me why I'm here," I said. She walked to a small mirror, touched her cheek as if making sure her face was still hers. "Because you understand two languages," she said, "and because you understand two kinds of sin." "That's flattering," I said. "It's true," she said. She turned, looked at me fully. "Do you remember the night on the roof near the racecourse, when the city lights looked like a necklace and we pretended it meant something?" "I remember," I said, though memory in Shanghai was a dangerous indulgence. "You told me you wanted to leave," she said. "You told me you were tired of being a voice in other people's mouths. And you told me you didn't trust any flag," I said. She laughed once, short. "I didn't trust you either," she said, "but I loved you, which was worse." The word hung between us like smoke. "Why did you really bring me here?" I asked again, softer. Her expression shifted. The performer mask slid aside, and for a moment I saw fear, real fear, not the theatrical kind. "Because they're going to kill me," she said. "Who?" I asked, though I already had a list. "Everyone," she said bitterly. "The gangs think I know where the ledger is. The police think I know what's in it. The Japanese think I know who Shen was meeting. And the people Shen was trying to help." She stopped, as if the phrase itself was dangerous. "Revolutionaries," I said. She didn't answer, which was an answer. I stepped closer. "Did you kill him?" I asked. Her hand moved fast, slapped my cheek. It wasn't hard, but it was precise. "You still ask questions like a policeman," she said. "No," I said, tasting blood where my lip had caught my tooth. "I ask like a man who doesn't want to be fooled again." Her eyes flickered, and for a second anger drained into exhaustion. "I didn't kill him," she said. "I went to him because he sent word. He wanted to give me something. He said it would buy my freedom." "Freedom from what?" I asked. From Shanghai, she said, and the way she said it made it sound like a disease. He told me to meet him at his office 2 nights ago. I went. He was nervous. He kept looking at the door. He said the ledger was a coffin and the key was in the silk. Did he give you the ledger? I asked. No, she said. He gave me this. She reached into a drawer, pulled out a small object wrapped in tissue, a jade ring, gold set, the same ring I'd seen beside Shen's hand. He took it off and pressed it into my palm, she said. He said, if they ask, you never saw me. Then he said, if you ever trusted that detective, don't. She looked at me as if, watching how the words would land. Did he mean me? I asked. Who else? She said. The room tilted again. Why would he warn you against me? I asked. Because you work for men like Hargreaves, she said, and because you once used me to find men like him. The past rose like a tide. 3 years earlier, after the 1927 purges, Shanghai had been full of whispers and blood. The special branch had hunted communists and union men with the same enthusiasm the Green Gang hunted competitors, and sometimes they hunted together. I had been an interpreter then, a liaison, a man who could walk into a smoky back room and come out with a name. I had met Hong in a club not unlike this one, and she had thought I was different because I spoke her language and didn't treat her like a novelty. I had thought I was different because I could pretend I was saving someone while I used them. She had given me information about a student, about a meeting, and the next day the student had disappeared. She had come to me screaming, and I had lied. Not to hurt her, I told myself, to protect her. Lies in Shanghai always wore good intentions like a hat. Shen gave you the ring, I said, dragging myself back. He said the key was in the silk. I held up the swatch from my pocket. This pattern. She looked at it, nodded. The Red Silk Cipher, she said quietly. He called it that. He said the pattern wasn't decoration, it was a map. A map to what? I asked. She exhaled. To a shipment, she said. To names, to money, to weapons. There it was. Commerce hiding revolution, stitched into cloth. And you know how to read it, I said. Not fully, she said, but I know who can. Who? She hesitated, then. An old weaver near the city god temple, Master Shu. He taught Shen's mill designers before the foreigners started buying patterns from Paris. City god temple is Chinese city, I said. Not safe. Nothing is safe, she said. That's why I called you. Why me? I asked, and hated myself for asking because I wanted the answer to be something soft. She looked at me, and the softness in her eyes was like a bruise. Because you're the only man in Shanghai who might betray me and still regret it, she said. The door behind me rattled. 3 quick knocks, then the handle jiggled. Hong's face tightened. They found the back corridor, she whispered. Who? I asked, already moving. Not French police, she said. They don't move that quietly. The knocks came again, harder. I drew my revolver, pointed it at the door. Stay behind me, I said. She laughed without humor. Like old times, she murmured. Old times ended, I said. The door burst inward. 2 men entered fast, one with a knife, one with a pistol. The knife man wore a cheap suit and expensive confidence. The pistol man had a thin moustache and eyes that didn't blink enough. The pistol man's gaze flicked to Hong, then to me. Mr. Lin, he said in careful English, you are interfering. His accent was Japanese, softened by time abroad. You're trespassing, I said. This is French territory. He smiled slightly. Territory is an argument, he said. We prefer conclusions. The knife man lunged. I fired once, not to kill but to persuade. The bullet hit the wall near his shoulder, spraying plaster. He froze. Hong grabbed a chair, swung it into the knife man's knees. He stumbled, cursed. The pistol man raised his weapon, but I was already moving, closing the distance. A gunfight in a dressing room would end with both of us dead and Hong as collateral. I slammed my forearm into his wrist, knocked the pistol aside, and felt the shock of his elbow as he tried to regain control. He was trained. So was I, in a different way. We grappled, stumbled into the mirror, glass cracking. Hong screamed, not in fear but in rage, and shoved him from behind. He crashed into the vanity. I struck his throat with the edge of my hand. He gagged, dropped to his knees, eyes watering. The knife man recovered, came at me again. Hong's heel came down on his wrist. The knife clattered. I kicked it away, then pressed my revolver against the knife man's forehead. "Leave," I said in Chinese. He spat, glanced at the Japanese man, and backed toward the door. The Japanese man coughed, straightened slowly. His gaze on Hong was cold. "You cannot hide forever," he said in Japanese, and Hong answered in the same language, sharp as a slap. "Neither can you." He looked surprised that she spoke it. Then he smiled, a thin curve. "Interesting," he said. "Very interesting." He backed out, the knife man following. The door hung crookedly. The hallway beyond was empty, but I could feel eyes in it. I locked the door as best I could, then turned to Hong. Her chest rose and fell quickly. A small cut on her knuckle bled. "You speak Japanese," I said. "Shanghai teaches," she replied. "That wasn't a green gang man," I said. "No," she said. "That was Mr. Sato." "The shipping agent," I said. "He's not an agent for shipping," she said. "He ships other things. And he wants the ledger," I said. "They all do," she said. She went to the mirror, looked at her reflection fragmented by cracks. "If I stay here, they'll come again," she said. "If I go outside, they'll take me in the street." "Come with me," I said, and the words felt both natural and dangerous. "To your office?" she asked. "To somewhere less obvious," I said. I thought of the one place in Shanghai that belonged to no flag, at least not officially, the neutral rooms above a tea house run by an old woman who had survived every regime by being invisible. "I'll get you out," I said, "but first we find Master Shu." Hong nodded once. "Hurry," she said, "because Shen's warning was late. The ledger isn't just names, it's timing." We left through the kitchen, past startled staff, into a back alley where garbage bins steamed and cats watched like judges. I kept to shadows. Hong's red dress swapped for a plain coat she'd grabbed from a hook. Even under the coat, the red seemed to bleed through, as if Shanghai itself insisted on marking her. We moved toward the Chinese city, using side streets, avoiding main boulevards where patrols and spies like to breathe. In the French Concession, the streetlights were warmer, the cafes louder, but the shadows were still Shanghai shadows, full of ears. I caught movement behind us twice, but couldn't be sure if it was pursuit or the normal restless drift of the city. At a corner near the old city wall remnants, we paused. A French policeman watched us, bored. He glanced at Hong, then at me, and his eyes lingered just long enough to suggest he recognized trouble and decided it wasn't his. "They will not help," Hong murmured. "The French help themselves," I said. "The British help themselves and call it order," she replied. "The Japanese help themselves and call it destiny," I said. "And China?" she asked. "China helps itself," I said. "And everyone calls it rebellion." We crossed into the Chinese city as the night deepened. The city god temple area was crowded even in wartime, commerce refusing to die. Lanterns glowed, vendors sold noodles, incense smoke curled into the air like prayers that didn't know where to land. The temple itself stood stubborn, its roof lines jagged against the dark. Nearby, in a narrow lane lined with workshops, we found Master Shu. His shop was small, filled with looms, spools, and bolts of fabric stacked like sleeping creatures. An old man sat at a low table, hands moving over a piece of cloth with a needle as if time didn't apply. He looked up as we entered. His eyes were milky with age but sharp with intelligence. "You're late," he said in Shanghainese, and I felt Hong tense beside me. "We didn't know we had an appointment," I said, answering in the same dialect, and his brows rose slightly. "Ah," he said, "a foreign tongue in a Chinese mouth." He looked at Hong. "And a red bird in a cage." Hong's chin lifted. "Master Shu," she said, "Shen Guangyuan is dead." The old man's needle paused. "I heard," he said. "The city hears everything, even the looms hear." "We need to read this," I said, and placed the red silk swatch on his table. Master Shu didn't touch it at first. He stared at the pattern as if it were a face he recognized in a crowd. Then he sighed, the sound of a man who has carried too much history. "Red silk," he murmured. "In old days, red meant weddings and joy. Now it means blood and slogans. He finally touched the cloth, fingers tracing the waves, the interruptions. This is not a common weave, he said. This is a cipher, yes. Shen was clever. Clever enough to get killed, Hong said bitterly. Master Shu's eyes flicked to her. Cleverness is not armor, he said. He looked at me. Why do you want to read it, detective? To sell it to the foreigners? To give it to the gangs? To hand it to the students? To stop people dying, I said. He smiled, not kindly. Then you're in the wrong city, he said. I met his gaze. Read it anyway, I said. Master Shu reached under the table, pulled out a worn book, its cover plain. He opened it to a page of classical poetry, characters flowing like water. In the mills, he said, patterns are copied. In code, patterns are keys. Shen used this poem as a base. Each interruption in the waves points to a character. The sequence of symbols, he traced them, gives a line. That line points to a place. He worked quickly, his old fingers sure. As he read, his face hardened. This is a map, he said finally, to warehouses along the river, to shipping manifests hidden under silk orders, and to... He stopped. To what? Hong asked, leaning forward. Master Shu looked at her, then at me. To a meeting, he said. A meeting tomorrow night at Warehouse 9, south of the Garden Bridge, near Hongqiu. Hongqiu was Japanese heavy territory, full of refugees and foreign soldiers. It was also close to where fighting had raged. Warehouse 9, I repeated. What happens there? Master Shu's mouth tightened. The cloth says, Red will rise where foreign lamps burn. Hong's face went pale under her powder. That sounds like an attack, she whispered. It sounds like a fire, I said. Master Shu nodded once. And the poem line references borrowed walls, he said. Foreign walls, concession walls. The international settlement, the French Concession, a planned incident, the kind of thing that could ignite a city already soaked in oil. Who wrote this? I asked. Shen, Master Shu said. Or someone using Shen's code. Could Shen have been warning us? Hong asked. Master Shu's gaze softened slightly. Perhaps, he said. Or perhaps he was part of it and regretted it too late. Who else knows the cipher? I asked. Very few, Master Shu said. Shen, his designer, a man from the docks who paid for patterns with silver and threats, and a woman who sings in French clubs and wears red like a banner. He looked at Hong without accusation, just recognition. Hong swallowed. Shen asked me to carry a bolt, she said quietly. He said it was only cloth. Master Shu snorted. Cloth is never only cloth, he said. Cloth covers bodies. Cloth covers secrets. Cloth makes flags. A sound outside, footsteps, many, made us all freeze. Master Shu's head tilted. Not customers, he murmured. I moved to the door, peered through a crack. Men in plain clothes filled the lane, their faces hard, their hands near their waists. Green gang, and among them one man in a western suit too fine for the lane, his posture military, his eyes scanning. Japanese. They had found us. Hong grabbed my sleeve. Back, she whispered. Master Shu cursed softly. He moved with surprising speed to a back curtain. There is an alley behind, he said. Go. Come with us, I said. I'm too old to run, he replied, and too tired to kneel. He shoved a small folded paper into my hand. The full reading, he said. If you live, use it. Master, Hong began, but he cut her off. Go, he said, and stop wearing red if you want to survive. The front door shook with a fist. A voice called in Chinese, rough. Open, old man. We only want to talk. Master Shu laughed, a dry sound. They always want to talk, he muttered. Their talk is a rope. I pulled Hong through the back curtain into a narrow passage that smelled of damp wood and dye. We emerged into a tight alley behind the shop, then slipped through like shadows, moving fast. Behind us, the shop door splintered. A shout. Then a sound like a single firecracker, one gunshot. And my gut tightened. Hong made a strangled noise, but kept running. We turned corners, ducked under hanging laundry, pushed past a startled vendor. The alley opened onto a wider street where a rickshaw waited, its puller dozing with his head down. I grabbed his shoulder. $2, I said. His eyes opened, saw my face, saw Hong, saw urgency. He nodded, sprang up. We climbed in and he ran, muscles straining, weaving through night traffic. As we rattled away, Hong's hands clenched in her lap. "He's dead," she whispered. "In Shanghai," I said. "We're all dead. Some just don't know it yet." She turned toward me, eyes wet but fierce. "Don't become cruel," she said. "It doesn't suit you." "Cruel suits this city," I said, but the words tasted like ash. I took her to the tea house above which the old woman rented rooms. It was in a part of the Chinese city where even gangs sometimes respected tradition, or at least pretended to. The old woman, Madame Gao, had a face like carved wood and eyes that could count lies without moving. She looked at Hong, then at me. "You bring storms," she said. "I pay extra," I replied. She snorted. "Storms always pay," she said. She led us upstairs to a small room with a thin mattress and a window that looked onto a courtyard of laundry lines. It wasn't safe, but it was safer than the street for the moment. Hong sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands. I checked the window, the door, the thin wall. The city's noise seeped in anyway. I pulled out Master Shu's folded paper, smoothed it on the table. The reading was more detailed than he'd spoken. References to Warehouse 9, to a shipment labeled Red Silk, special order, to a time, 11 p.m., and a phrase that made my blood chill. "When the foreign lamps burn brightest, let the red thread snap." It wasn't just a meeting. It was a plan to break something. Perhaps literally. Perhaps a bomb. Time to shatter the illusion of safety in the concessions. Hong leaned over my shoulder, reading. "If that happens," she whispered, "they'll blame the Chinese." "Or the Japanese will blame the Chinese," I said. "Or the foreigners will blame everyone and lock their gates," she said. "Or the gangs will sell protection at twice the price," I added. "Or the revolutionaries will call it the spark," she said. And her voice carried a complicated note, fear and something else. Hope, maybe. "Are you with them?" I asked quietly. Hong's shoulders stiffened. "With who?" she asked too quickly. "The students," I said. "The cell that hides in mills and pamphlets." She exhaled slowly. "I have sung in rooms where men whispered about changing the world," she said. "I have carried notes because if I didn't, someone I cared about would be hurt. In Shanghai, everyone is with someone." "Are you with them by choice?" I pressed. She looked at me then and the old intimacy flared, dangerous, familiar. "By choice?" she echoed. "Victor, you of all people know Shanghai doesn't ask for consent. It asks what you're willing to lose." I sat back. "Then tell me what you're willing to lose," I said. She swallowed. "I don't want people to die," she said. "But I don't want Shanghai to stay like this either. I don't want foreigners drinking champagne while Chinese children eat ash. I don't want the Japanese marching through streets and calling it peace. I don't want gangs selling poison and calling it business. And I don't want men like you, men who can walk between worlds, pretending neutrality is innocence." Her words hit like rain on hot stone, hissing. "Neutrality," I said, "is sometimes the only way to keep breathing." "Breathing isn't living," she said. There was a knock at the door. 3 quick knocks, then a pause, then 2 more. The code Madame Gao used. I opened the door a crack. Madame Gao stood there, expression unchanged. "A man is below," she said. "He says he knows you from the old days. He smiles like a knife." "Brother Knife." My pulse tightened. "Tell him I'm not here," I said. Madame Gao's eyes narrowed. "He already knows you are," she said. "Stupidity is expensive. He is not stupid." I cursed softly. If Brother Knife had found us, then so could Hargreaves, so could Sato. The net was tightening fast. "Bring him up," I said. "But tell him to come alone." Madame Gao's lip curled. "Men like that are never alone," she said, and went back downstairs. Hong stood pacing. "If it's the gang," she said, "they'll take me." "Not if I can help it," I said. "Can you?" she asked, and the question cut deeper than she meant. The door opened again. Brother Knife stepped in without waiting to be invited. He was in his late 30s, hair slicked, suit immaculate, a faint scar near his ear. His hands were clean, nails manicured. He looked like a banker until you saw his eyes, which were the eyes of a man who measured lives the way tailors measured cloth. Two men hovered in the hallway, not entering but present like punctuation. Victor Lin, Brother Knife said in English, smiling. Or should I say Lin Shaowen? You collect names the way we collect debts. And you collect both, I said. Dao Ge, I added in Chinese, giving him the respect title that cost me nothing and bought time. He glanced at Hong and his smile widened. Ah, he said, the songbird, Red Silk herself. Hong's chin lifted. I'm not yours, she said. Brother Knife laughed gently. Nobody is mine, he said. Ownership is crude. Influence is refined. He walked to the table, glanced at the paper with Master Shu's cipher reading. His eyes sharpened. You've been busy, he said. Busy enough to get an old man killed, Hong snapped. Brother Knife's smile didn't move. Old men die, he said. Young ones too. The city has appetites. He looked at me. Shen Guangyuan owed us, he said. Money, protection fees. He paid sometimes, not always. He thought the war excused him. War excuses nothing. Did you kill him? I asked. Brother Knife looked mildly offended. We are businessmen, he said. We don't strangle magnates in their own offices. That's bad for commerce. No, Victor. Someone else killed him. Someone who wanted his ledger. You want it too, I said. Of course, he said. We want everything that has value. That is our honesty. He glanced at Hong again. And she has value. Hong's hands clenched. I stepped between them, slightly casual but deliberate. Brother Knife noticed, and amusement flickered. How touching, he said. You still play the protector. State your price, I said. My price? Brother Knife said. He leaned closer, voice soft. Your cooperation, he said. You go to Warehouse 9 tomorrow night. You bring me the ledger if you find it. Or you bring me the cipher and what it leads to. In return, we let the singer live. Hong's breath caught. You're threatening me, she said. Brother Knife tilted his head. I am describing reality, he said. Threats are for men without power. And if I refuse? I asked. Brother Knife's eyes hardened by a fraction. Then I cannot guarantee what my colleagues will do, he said. Shanghai is full of uncontrolled elements. He said it like a joke. It wasn't. Why do you care about Warehouse 9? I asked. Because it is business, he said. Because if someone plans to set fire under foreign lamps, the consequences will shake the docks. Shaken docks are bad for profit. Or good for profit, I said. Chaos pays, he said calmly, but only if you are the one selling order. He tapped the table near the cipher reading. This smells like Japanese work, he said. They like incidents. Incidents justify occupations. Occupations create new markets. He shrugged. We are not patriots, but we are Shanghainese. We do not like outsiders rearranging our city without paying the proper fees. Hong stared at him with disgust. You'll sell China for opium, she said. Brother Knife's gaze slid to her, indifferent. China is a concept, he said. Opium is tangible. He looked back at me. Choose wisely, Victor, he said. You stand between many fires. Don't pretend you can extinguish them all. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. One more thing, he said. Inspector Hargreaves sends his regards. My stomach dropped. Brother Knife smiled at my expression. Yes, he said softly. The British like to keep their hands clean. We do their dirty work sometimes. They do ours sometimes. It's called civilization. He left, his men melting after him. The hallway fell quiet. Hong looked at me as if seeing a new bruise on my face. Hargreaves and the gang, she whispered. You didn't know? I knew they danced, I said. I didn't know the music was this close. She laughed bitterly. Now you understand Shen's warning, she said. I sat down, feeling suddenly tired. He warned you not to trust me, I said. Maybe he meant don't trust the world I'm tied to. Are you tied to it? She asked. Or do you just pretend the knots aren't there? I looked at her. I can cut some knots, I said. Not all. Then cut the one around my neck, she said. And for a moment the room felt like that rooftop again, the city lights below, the illusion that love could be a kind of passport. I'm trying, I said. The next day crawled by like a wounded animal. I left Hong in Madame Gao's room with a small pistol I'd given her, though I wasn't sure whether it would protect her or simply give her a quicker end. Don't use it unless you have to, I told her. That's what men always say, she replied, and women always learn they have to sooner than men think. I went to see Hargreaves. If he was in bed with Brother Knife, then the case wasn't a case, it was a play, and I was being given a role. The Shanghai Municipal Police headquarters smelled of sweat, ink, and authority. Sikh constables stood at doors, faces impassive. A Chinese clerk looked up nervously when I passed. Hargreaves's office was on an upper floor, window looking out over rooftops like a man surveying property. He greeted me with that scrubbed face and a cup of tea that had gone cold. "How's my detective?" he asked. "Alive," I said. "For now." He smiled thinly. "That's Shanghai," he said. "What have you found?" I sat without being invited. "Red Silk Cipher," I said. "Warehouse 9, tomorrow night. Something planned that could light up the concessions." Hargreaves's expression didn't change, but I saw the quick flicker in his eyes. He already knew, or suspected. "Interesting," he said. "And where did you hear that?" "From a weaver who's now dead," I said. "And from a singer you told me to avoid." His jaw tightened. "You've been in the French Concession," he said. "I go where the clues go," I replied. "Clues can be traps," he said. "So can policemen," I said. Silence stretched. Outside, a siren wailed briefly, then cut off. "Lin," Hargreaves said softly, leaning forward. "You're not the only man working this. There are diplomatic sensitivities. The municipal council is in contact with consulates. If the Japanese are planning something, we need to handle it without provoking an international incident." I laughed once. "Handle it without provoking an incident," I repeated. "In a city that survives on incidents." His eyes hardened. "Mind your tone," he said. "Mind your alliances," I replied. His face froze for a second, then smoothed. "You've been talking to unsavory types," he said. "You mean Brother Knife," I said. "Yes," he said, and didn't deny it. "We all speak to unsavory types. It's called policing." "It's called bargaining," I said. "And you're bargaining with a city's throat." Hargreaves stood, walked to the window, looked out. For a moment he looked older. "You don't understand the pressures," he said. "The settlement is a powder keg. If there's an explosion, foreign troops will pour in. The Japanese will demand control. The Chinese will riot. Trade will collapse. People will die in numbers that make one textile magnate look like a rounding error." "So you'll cut a deal with the gang," I said. "And maybe the Japanese and call it stability." He turned. "Stability," he said, "is the only mercy this city gets." "Mercy for whom?" I asked. His gaze held mine. "For those who can afford it," he said honestly, and that honesty was almost worse than a lie. I stood. "I'll go to Warehouse 9, I said. "I'll find out what's planned. But I'm not handing everything to you if you're going to use it to crush whoever you call uncontrolled elements." Hargreaves's eyes narrowed. "You are not in a position to bargain," he said. "Everyone is in a position to bargain," I said. "Shanghai runs on it." I left before he could threaten me properly. On the street outside, I lit a cigarette with shaking hands. The smoke tasted like surrender. I needed leverage, something that wasn't already bought. Shen's missing ledger was still the center of the spiderweb. Everyone assumed the ledger would be at Warehouse 9. But what if it wasn't? What if Warehouse 9 was a decoy, a stage, and the real ledger, the names, the money, the timing, was somewhere else? Shen had been strangled in his office. The safe had been opened. Someone had taken the sample ledger. But Shen's hand had been clenched, and the ring had been pulled off. He'd given it to Hong. Why? A ring isn't just jewelry. It can be a key. I took a tram toward the Bund, then walked along the river, thinking. Shen's office building had been sealed as a crime scene, but seals in Shanghai were like vows, meaningful only until money or necessity intervened. I found a back entrance, greeted the night guard by name. He owed me from an old gambling debt, and slipped upstairs. Shen's office smelled less of death now, more of stale air. I went to the safe. Inside was emptiness, and a faint smear of red dye along the back wall, as if someone had brushed silk against it. I ran my fingers along the interior, found a slight seam, a false panel. Shen had been clever. I pried gently with a penknife. The panel gave, revealing a narrow, hidden compartment. Inside was not the ledger, too large, but a thin metal cylinder, like those used for blueprints. I opened it and found a rolled sheet of rice paper covered in numbers, columns, and what looked like shipping codes. At the bottom, a phrase in Chinese. If you are reading this, I have failed. My stomach tightened. Shen had anticipated his own death. The paper wasn't a ledger, it was an index, a key to the ledger, and it referenced, again and again, Red Butterfly, Le Papillon Rouge, Hong's club. Shen had hidden the key here, and the key pointed to her world. Had he entrusted the ledger to her? Or had he hidden it somewhere connected to her, knowing everyone would suspect her and thus miss the hiding place? I folded the paper, put it in my pocket, replaced the panel as best I could. As I turned to leave, a voice in the doorway said, "Working late, Mr. Lin?" The voice was smooth, with the faintest American twang. I froze. A man stood there in a dark suit, hat in hand, as if he'd walked in from a business meeting instead of a crime scene. His face was ordinary enough to be forgettable, which in Shanghai was the most dangerous kind. His eyes were sharp. "Mr. Sato," I said. He smiled. "That is what some call me," he said in English. "You are bold to enter a sealed room." "You are bold to follow me," I said. He stepped in slowly, closed the door behind him. "We have mutual interests," he said. "Do we?" I asked. "You want to prevent chaos," he said. "I want to prevent chaos," I laughed. "You're Japanese," I said. "Your navy is parked on the river. Your troops have been shelling Jabe. Don't insult me by calling that prevention." His smile didn't falter. "War is chaotic," he said. "Order is achieved through decisive action." "That's a slogan," I said. "I don't buy slogans." He took a step closer. "Shen Guangyuan was involved in smuggling," he said. "Not silk, other material, money for insurgents, weapons. The ledger contains proof." "And you want that proof," I said. "I want it removed," he said. "Destroyed, preferably." "So your order isn't inconvenienced by evidence," I said. He shrugged slightly. "Evidence is a weapon," he said. "In the wrong hands, it kills more than bullets." "You're threatening me," I said. He shook his head. "I am offering you a choice," he said. "Give me what you took from the safe, and I will ensure the singer lives." My heart thudded. He knew about Hong. "If you harm her," I began. He lifted a hand. "I do not harm unnecessarily," he said. "But many will harm her if she remains useful." He studied my face. "You care," he said softly. "That is your weakness." "Or my last human part," I said. He smiled. "Humanity is a luxury in Shanghai," he said. He took another step, and I saw the slight bulge under his jacket. A pistol, likely small, likely fast. I had mine, but we were in a narrow room with no cover. A gunfight would be quick and loud, and the SMP would arrive, and Hargreaves would ask questions that had only wrong answers. I needed a different move. "You want what I took," I said, stalling. "Yes," he said. "Then you'll have to search me," I said, and held out my hands as if surrendering. His eyebrows lifted. "You are pragmatic," he said. "I am alive," I said. He moved closer, cautious, his free hand reaching. At the last second, I swung my arms down and forward, not to strike, but to hook his wrist, twist it. His gun hand moved, but I drove my shoulder into his chest, pushing him against the desk. He was strong, trained, but surprise is a language everyone understands. The desk lamp toppled, glass shattering, and in that moment of noise I heard footsteps in the hall. Real footsteps, heavy, official. Hargreaves's men or Sato's? Either way, time was gone. Sato hissed in Japanese, tried to knee me, but I shifted, grabbed the broken lamp cord, looped it around his wrist, yanked. His pistol clattered to the floor. He stared at me with something like respect. "You are dangerous," he said. "So is your empire," I replied. The door burst open. 2 SMP constables, one Sikh, one British, stood there with batons and pistols. Behind them, Hargreaves. His eyes took in the scene. Me grappling with Sato, the shattered lamp, the open safe. His face didn't show surprise, it showed calculation. "Mr. Lin," he said coldly. You're under arrest for trespassing and interfering with a crime scene. Sato straightened his jacket, smoothing it. He gave Hargreaves a small nod, so they knew each other, of course. Inspector, Sato said politely, this man is energetic. Hargreaves's mouth tightened. Take Lin, he snapped. The Sikh constable stepped forward. I recognized him, Sergeant Singh. He'd once shared a cigarette with me behind the station, telling me about his home in Punjab and the strange cold of Shanghai winters. His eyes met mine. There was regret there. Sorry, Sahib, he murmured and grabbed my arm. Hargreaves, I said, what is this? You're arresting me while a Japanese agent stands in Shen's office? He's a shipping representative, Hargreaves said smoothly, with consular connections. He's an intelligence operative, I said. In this city, everyone is an operative, Hargreaves replied, including you. Take him downstairs. As they marched me out, Sato's voice drifted behind. You will choose, Mr. Lin. Everyone chooses. The cell they put me in at the station was small, smelling of disinfectant and old sweat. The bars were thick, the kind meant to reassure foreigners that order existed. Outside, voices murmured, phones rang, boots moved. I sat on the bench, thinking fast. Hargreaves couldn't keep me long without paperwork, and paperwork in Shanghai was both weapon and excuse. He wanted to delay me until Warehouse 9, to control what happened there, or he wanted to pressure me into giving up what I'd found. He didn't know about the paper in my pocket because they hadn't searched me thoroughly. Singh had patted me down perfunctorily, perhaps deliberately, a small mercy. I heard footsteps. Then Singh himself appeared at the bars. He looked left and right, then leaned close. Mr. Lin, he whispered. Inspector says you are trouble, but you are not like other trouble. That's comforting, I muttered. Singh's moustache twitched. They have orders, he said quietly. About the singer, about Warehouse 9. What orders? I asked. Singh hesitated, then, to let it happen, he said, and the words made the air cold. To catch the people who come, he added. Special branch wants names. At the cost of lives, I said. Singh's eyes lowered. That is not my decision, he said. But I can open this door for 1 minute, he whispered. You have friends? I stared at him. Why? I asked. Because my mother says karma is real, he said simply. And because sometimes a man must choose who he is. He pulled a key, slipped it into the lock. The door clicked. 1 minute, he said. I stood, moved past him. Sing, I said, if they ask. I saw nothing, he said quickly. Go. I walked out like I belonged there, head high, shoulders squared. In Shanghai, confidence was a disguise as effective as any uniform. I turned corners, avoided the main desk, slipped through a side exit into the alley behind the station. Rain had begun, fine and cold, turning the street into a mirror. I pulled my hat low and moved. The first place I went was Madame Gao's tea house. If Hong was gone, everything was already lost. I climbed the stairs fast, 2 at a time. The hallway smelled of tea and damp. I reached the room, opened the door. Hong was gone. The bed was untouched, the window closed. On the table, a single object, the jade ring, and beside it a strip of red silk tied into a small knot, the same kind of knot that had killed Shen. My chest tightened until breathing felt like swallowing glass. I picked up the silk. Attached to it was a note in neat Chinese characters. Warehouse 9, 11. Bring the key or bring her body. Brother Knife's handwriting, perhaps, or someone imitating it. Either way, the message was clear. They had her. The city had made my choice for me and then dared me to pretend it hadn't. I sat for a moment staring at the ring. Shen had given it to Hong. Now it was back with me like a baton in a relay where everyone collapses before the finish. A ring can be a key. I examined it closely. The jade stone wasn't perfectly set. It could swivel slightly. I twisted it. The stone popped up, revealing a tiny compartment in the ring's band. Inside was a sliver of paper, tightly rolled. My hand shook as I teased it out. It was a micronote, the kind spies loved, a list of numbers and a single line in English. Warehouse 9 is the stage. Ledger is under the butterfly. Under the butterfly, le papillon rouge. Shen had hidden the ledger there, perhaps in the club itself, under its very name, counting on the chaos of glamour to hide something as ugly as truth. And now everyone was marching to Warehouse 9 while the real treasure sat under a spotlight. Unless someone else had already taken it. Unless this was another layer of misdirection. But it was my best lead, and Hong's life was balanced on it. I had hours until 11. 2 tasks. Get the ledger from the club, then go to Warehouse 9 with something to bargain, or with enough knowledge to sabotage whatever was planned. I went to Le Papillon Rouge before dusk, when the club was still quiet, staff cleaning, the stage empty. Madame Delacroix, the owner, was a Frenchwoman with dyed hair and eyes like a tax collector. She saw me and sighed. "Monsieur Lin," she said, "you bring police, gangs, and now broken doors. My insurance does not cover you." "I need to speak to your singer," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "She is unavailable," she said carefully. "I know," I said. "Then you know more than you should," she said. I leaned closer. "Madame," I said in French, "if something happens tonight, your club will burn, not metaphorically." Her eyes narrowed. "Who told you that?" she asked. "The same people who would enjoy watching your insurance fail," I said. Her mouth tightened. "Fine," she said. "What do you want?" "I want to look under your butterfly," I said. She stared, then laughed sharply. "Men and their metaphors," she said. "Under the sign? Under the name? Under the—" She stopped as understanding hit. She gestured toward the stage. "The butterfly is on the wall behind," she said. "A plaster relief. Pretty. Useless." "Nothing is useless," I said, and walked toward it. Behind the stage, a large painted butterfly spread its wings, red and gold. Beneath it, a narrow shelf held decorative fans and fake flowers. I ran my fingers along the wall, plaster, cool, slightly uneven. Near the base, a faint seam. I pressed. The plaster panel shifted slightly, hidden compartment. My pulse thudded. I glanced back. Madame Delacroix watched, lips pressed. "If you break my wall," she warned, "I will break your head." "Add it to my list of enemies," I muttered, and pried gently. The panel came free. Inside was a book wrapped in oilcloth, thick, a ledger. Samples were pinned between pages, tiny swatches of silk, each with a code scribbled beside it. The sample ledger. Shen's coffin. I pulled it out, feeling its weight like a sin. Madame Delacroix's eyes widened. "Mon Dieu," she whispered. "What is that?" "Trouble," I said, "the kind that doesn't tip." I wrapped it under my coat. Madame Delacroix grabbed my arm. "If the police find this here," she began. "They won't," I said, "because it won't be here." Her grip tightened. "Lien," she said quietly, "is she alive?" The question surprised me. "For now," I said. Madame Delacroix's eyes flickered, and for a moment she looked older, less cynical. "Bring her back," she said, then released my arm as if ashamed of the softness. "Go!" she snapped. "Before I decide I hate you again." I left. The club with the ledger pressed against my ribs like a second heart. The streets had darkened. Rain fell harder now, turning Shanghai into a smear of lights. I needed to read the ledger fast, to understand what was planned, to decide what to do. But reading a cipher book in the open was like counting money in a riot. I went to my office, locked the door, turned on the lamp, and opened the ledger. The pages smelled of dye and ink. Each entry had a swatch, red silk, blue silk, plain, patterned, and beside it columns of numbers, shipping codes, and Chinese characters that looked innocuous until you knew how to read them. Shen had used a blend of classical references and modern business shorthand, the perfect camouflage. I scanned for Warehouse 9, found it, a red swatch with the wave pattern. Beside it, W9, red butterfly order, 11 o'clock, foreign lamps. Another entry listed lamp oil, which in code could mean explosives. Another listed matches, likely detonators. The ledger wasn't just a record, it was a schedule of sabotage hidden in commerce. Names appeared too, but not names as names. Initials, foreign firm abbreviations, street numbers. One stood out, H, special branch. Another, D, knife. Another, S, Navy, Hargreaves. Brother knife, Sato, a triangle of convenience using a planned incident as bait to draw out revolutionaries, to justify crackdowns, to rearrange power. And somewhere in the margins, a recurring symbol, a small stitched character meaning red, not as color but as ideology. The revolutionary cells were involved too, either as pawns or as co-authors. Shen had been in the middle, perhaps trying to steer the plan away from slaughter, perhaps trying to save Hong, perhaps trying to save his own conscience. He died for it. My hands tightened on the book. If I took this ledger to Hargreaves, he'd use it to arrest students and workers, to smash cells, to prove the settlement was handling unrest. If I gave it to Brother Knife, he'd auction the information to the highest bidder, maybe even to the Japanese, while pretending it was for Shanghai's stability. If I destroyed it, the planned incident might still happen tonight, and then hundreds could die, and the city could tip into something worse than what it already was. There was no clean choice. There never was. I thought of Hong's face in the dressing room, the slap, the fear, the anger. I thought of Master Shu's shop door splintering. I thought of Shen's dead eyes staring at a ceiling that didn't care. 11 p.m. was coming fast. I stuffed the ledger into a satchel, grabbed my revolver, and left. Warehouse 9 was near the docks south of the Garden Bridge, in an area where the international settlement brushed against Hongqiu. The Garden Bridge itself was a steel spine over Suqiao Creek, and near it the city felt like a battlefield, even when the guns were quiet. Japanese patrols moved in the distance. Foreign sentries watched from barricades. Chinese civilians hurried with heads down. I approached on foot, keeping to alleys, the satchel heavy. The warehouse district was a maze of corrugated roofs and stacked crates. Warehouse 9 was marked with faded English letters and a Chinese character for silk. A faint light glowed inside. I stopped in the shadow of a stack of empty barrels and listened. Voices drifted. Men, several languages. A truck engine idled nearby. This wasn't a single meeting, it was a convergence. I circled closer, found a side door slightly ajar. Through the crack I saw the interior. Bolts of fabric piled high, crates stamped with foreign shipping marks, a makeshift table under a hanging lamp. Men stood around it, 2 green gang enforcers in plain suits. Brother Knife himself, elegant and calm. Inspector Hargreaves in a dark coat, hat off, expression tight. And Mr. Sato, standing a little apart, hands clasped, eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. And in the center, tied to a chair, was Hong. Her mouth was gagged, her hair disheveled, but her eyes were blazing. When she saw me through the crack, she didn't widen them in plea. She narrowed them in warning, as if to say, "Don't walk into the obvious trap, you fool." I swallowed hard. The obvious trap was also the only door to her. I could retreat, plan, call someone, but who? French police? They'd shrug. Chinese authorities? They'd be blocked at the boundary. The SMP. Hargreaves was already here. Brother Knife's men would kill Hong the moment they felt threatened. Time was a knife edge. I pushed the door wider and stepped in, revolver lowered but visible, satchel in my other hand. All heads turned. Hargreaves's mouth tightened. Brother Knife smiled. Sato's eyes glittered. "Mr. Lin," Brother Knife said warmly, "right on time. Shanghai loves punctuality when death is involved." "Let her go," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Sato chuckled softly. "The detective speaks like a lover," he said. Hargreaves's gaze was cold. "You escaped custody," he said. "That will be addressed," I said, "after we stop whatever madness you're planning." Brother Knife spread his hands. "Planning?" he said. "We are simply meeting to exchange goods. Silk, information, lives, all commodities." I stepped closer, keeping distance. "I have the ledger," I said. Hargreaves's eyes flicked to the satchel. Sato's posture tightened. Brother Knife's smile deepened. "Good," Brother Knife said. "Then we can be civilized." "Untie her," I said. Hargreaves spoke then, voice controlled. "Lin," he said, "hand over the ledger. The singer is a witness. We will ensure her safety." Hong made a muffled sound behind her gag that could have been laughter. "Your safety," I said to Hargreaves, "looks like a cell." Sato tilted his head. "Give it to me," he said smoothly, "and I will guarantee her passage out of Shanghai, a ship, A new name. No more gangs, no more police. Hong's eyes flashed fury at him. She didn't want his mercy. Brother Knife chuckled. Such generosity, he said. Japanese kindness is famous. Sato's smile remained, but his eyes hardened. We all want order, Sato said. We differ on the method. I don't want your order, Hong said suddenly, her voice muffled but fierce, words pushing past the gag somehow, raw force. Brother Knife turned, slapped her lightly. Quiet, he said almost gently. You are a bargaining chip, not a philosopher. Something in me snapped, not loudly, but definitively. I realized then that no bargain here would leave her untouched. Even if I saved her body, they would keep owning her through fear. Even if I gave them the ledger, they'd use it to kill others. And Hong would carry that weight too. I also realized something else, reading the room. Hargreaves, Sato, and Brother Knife didn't trust each other. They were allied only by convenience. Convenience was fragile. Fragile things could be broken. Before we exchange, I said, forcing calm, I want to know what's in it for each of you. Brother Knife smiled. A confession, he said. How Catholic of you. Humor me, I said. Or shoot me and take the bag, I added. But if you shoot me, you'll risk tearing the ledger with blood, and then nobody gets clean information. Is that what you want? Hargreaves' jaw tightened. He knew I wasn't bluffing. Silk pages could be ruined by liquid, and the ledger's value was in its intact sequence. Sato watched me like a man watching a card trick. Brother Knife nodded slowly. Fine, he said. Inspector wants names, students, agitators, anyone who might cause disorder in the settlement. He will arrest them and tell the municipal council he saved commerce. The Japanese gentleman wants evidence destroyed so his operations remain untraceable. And he smiled wider. I want to know who owes me money and who is planning to burn my city without paying me. And Hong? I said, staring at them. What do you want with her? Sato spoke first. She is a courier, he said. She knows faces. Hargreaves' voice was colder. She is leverage, he said. Brother Knife shrugged. She is expensive entertainment, he said, but also a message. If singers can be taken, anyone can. Hong's eyes burned into mine. In them I saw a memory, her on the rooftop, laughing at my earnest promises. I saw another memory, her face when she realized I'd lied about the student's disappearance. I saw the present, her refusing to look like a victim even while tied to a chair. Here's my offer, I said, and my voice surprised even me. None of you get the ledger. The warehouse went still. Then Hargreaves barked a laugh. You're insane, he said. Maybe, I said, but I'm the one holding it. Sato's hand moved toward his jacket. Brother Knife's eyes narrowed, but his smile remained, like a blade that enjoyed being seen. Then what do you propose? Brother Knife asked. I took the satchel strap off my shoulders slowly, set the satchel on the floor between us, careful, like placing a live animal down. You untie her, I said, and I walk out with her. You can keep your incident, you can keep your politics. I'll burn the ledger before I let any of you use it. Hargreaves' face went red. That ledger is evidence, he snapped. It's also a massacre, I said, and I won't be the man who hands you the list. Sato's smile vanished. If you burn it, he said, you will die. If I hand it over, I said, I'll die anyway, just slower. Brother Knife chuckled. Noir philosophy, he said. Very fashionable. He looked at Hargreaves. Inspector, he said. Perhaps we should simply take it. Hargreaves' eyes flicked to the Green Gang enforcers, then to Sato. He was outnumbered here, even with his badge. The badge meant something in the settlement, less in a warehouse district where the law was whoever brought more men. Sato's hand was still near his jacket. I kept my revolver low but ready. You won't shoot, Brother Knife said softly to me. Not with her here. You're sentimental. Try me, I said, and meant it enough that he paused. Hong made a sound, trying to speak. Brother Knife looked at her, annoyed. Enough, he said. He reached for her gag. I tensed, thinking he'd silence her permanently. But he pulled the gag down. Hong inhaled sharply. The bomb isn't here, she spat. It's under the truck. Everyone froze. Sato's head snapped toward the warehouse doors where a truck idled outside. Hargreaves's eyes widened. Brother Knife's smile finally faltered. "What did you say?" Brother Knife hissed. Hong laughed, wild. "You idiots," she said. "You're all staring at the ledger like it's the world. Shen used the ledger to lure you here. He knew you'd come. The real shipment, the oil, the matches, arrived this afternoon. It's on the truck, set to go into the settlement at 10:50. You're late." The air turned electric. Sato swore in Japanese, started toward the door. Hargreaves lunged too, suddenly all urgency. Brother Knife grabbed Hong's hair, yanked her head back. "You lied to us," he snarled. "I sang for you," she gasped, eyes watering. "You never listened." I moved fast. I fired, not at a man, but at the rope binding Hong's wrists. The bullet snapped the rope. She jerked free, stumbled. Brother Knife's hand shot toward his pistol. I fired again, this time into the floor between his feet. He froze, eyes furious. "Go," I snapped at Hong. She ran toward me, but Sato was already moving toward the truck. Hargreaves shouted orders. The warehouse erupted into motion, men grabbing guns, shouting, chaos. I grabbed the satchel, slung it, and pulled Hong toward the side door. "The truck," she panted. "If it goes—" "I know," I said. "We stop it." We burst into the rain outside. The truck's headlights cut through the dark like knives. Sato was at its side, shouting to the driver in Japanese. The driver, a nervous Chinese man, looked confused, terrified. Hargreaves's men poured out of the warehouse, guns drawn. Green Gang enforcers spilled out too, moving with lethal grace. For a second, it looked like all of Shanghai's factions had decided to converge on a single vehicle, as if the city's fate could be carried on 4 wheels. I ran toward the truck, Hong beside me. "Wait!" she shouted, grabbing my arm. "The detonator!" She didn't finish because a gunshot cracked, and the driver's head snapped back, blood spraying the windshield. The truck lurched as his foot hit the pedal. It roared forward, uncontrolled, heading toward the street that led to the settlement. "No!" Hong screamed. I sprinted, rain slapping my face. The truck swerved, nearly hitting stacked crates. I saw a small box wired under the chassis, a nest of wires and a clock face glinting. Sato was running after it, cursing. Hargreaves shouted something I couldn't hear. Brother Knife's men raised guns, some firing at the truck, bullets sparking off metal. "Stop shooting!" I yelled. "You'll hit the explosives!" Nobody listened. Shanghai never listened. I reached the truck's side as it slowed slightly from hitting a puddle and bouncing. I grabbed the door handle, hauled myself up onto the running board. The cab smelled of blood and gasoline. The dead driver slumped over the wheel, eyes glassy. I shoved him aside, grabbed the wheel, fought the truck's momentum. My boots slipped on the wet metal. Behind me, Hong was screaming my name, her voice swallowed by engines and gunfire. I yanked the wheel hard, forcing the truck toward the curb, trying to wedge it into a stack of sandbags that lined the road near a barricade. The truck slammed into the sandbags, shuddered, stalled. The engine coughed, then died. For one blessed second, there was silence except for rain. Then footsteps, men converging. Sato reached the truck first, face twisted with panic. He scrambled under the chassis, hands moving fast toward the wired box. "What are you doing?" I demanded, pointing my revolver down at him. He looked up, rain dripping from his hair. "Disarming," he snapped. "You will all die if I fail." "You planted it," I said, "and now you're saving us." "I did not plan for incompetence," he snarled, eyes wild. "The driver was not to be shot. The timing—" He cut himself off. Hargreaves arrived, breathless, gun raised. Brother Knife's men fanned out behind. In the truck's headlights, everyone's faces looked harsh and unreal. "Step away," Hargreaves ordered Sato. "This is police jurisdiction." Sato laughed, a broken sound. "Jurisdiction?" he spat. "Your city is a map of lies." He went back to the wires. Brother Knife's eyes flicked to me, then to the box under the truck, then to Hargreaves. He saw opportunity. In chaos, he could sell survival. "Inspector," Brother Knife said smoothly, "perhaps you should let the Japanese gentleman work. If we all die, there will be no arrests." Hargreaves's jaw clenched. He hated taking advice from a gangster, but he hated dying more. Hong stood a few steps back, soaked, shivering, eyes fixed on the box. "Victor," she whispered, "the timer—" I crouched, peered under. The clock face showed minutes, seconds, less than 2 minutes. Sato's fingers moved fast, precise. He muttered under his breath in Japanese, likely curses. "What if he's lying?" Hong whispered. "What if he's arming it?" "Then we all die," I said. "And if I shoot him?" "We might all die faster," she said. Hargreaves raised his gun slightly. "Lin," he said, "give me the ledger now." Even here, even with a bomb ticking, he wanted his list. I stared at him, rain running down my face. "You're unbelievable," I said. "I'm a policeman," he snapped. "I do my job." "Your job is counting corpses as statistics," Hong said, stepping forward. Hargreaves's eyes flicked to her, cold. "You should be grateful we intend to protect you," he said. Hong laughed, high and harsh. "Protect me," she said. "Like you protected the students in 27, like you protected Shen." Hargreaves's face flushed. "Shut up," he snapped. Brother Knife smiled faintly, enjoying the moral theater. Sato suddenly went still, his hands froze on the wires. "Damn," he whispered in English. "What?" I demanded. He looked up, and for the first time fear cracked his mask. "Secondary trigger," he said. "A pressure release. If I cut—" he swallowed. "If I cut wrong, it detonates." "Can you disarm it?" I asked. He stared at the wires like they were snakes. "Maybe," he said, "but not with all these eyes and guns." Brother Knife leaned closer, voice silky. "Then make your choice," he said to Sato. "You Japanese love sacrifice." Sato's gaze snapped to him, hatred flaring. "You talk too much," Sato hissed. Then his eyes flicked to Hong, to me. "The ledger," he said suddenly. "Give it to me, and I will tell you how to stop this." "You're bargaining with a bomb," I said, "as if it's a market stall." "Everything is bargaining," he snapped. He looked at me sharply. "You want her alive. You want Shanghai not to burn tonight. Give me the ledger." I realized then what this was. Not just sabotage, but leverage. The bomb was their ultimatum, designed to force compliance from whichever faction hesitated. Shen had tried to warn, tried to lure them, tried to disrupt. Now we were at the knife edge. I could hand over the ledger and save lives now, but empower Sato to erase evidence and continue operations later. I could refuse and risk detonation, killing dozens, maybe igniting the city. I could shoot Sato, but the bomb might go off anyway. I could try something else. I pulled the ledger out of the satchel slowly, held it up so all could see. Rain dotted its cover. Hargreaves's eyes fixed on it like a starving man. Brother Knife's smile widened. Sato's breath quickened. "Here," I said. "You want it? Fine." And then I threw it, not to them, but into a puddle of oil and rainwater near the sandbags, where a lantern from a nearby barricade flickered. The ledger landed with a wet slap. For a heartbeat, everyone stared, stunned. Then Hargreaves shouted, "You idiot!" Brother Knife lunged. Sato's eyes widened in horror. I pulled out my cigarette lighter, the same cheap lighter I'd carried for years, and flicked it open. "Victor!" Hong gasped. "I'm sorry," I said to her, and meant more than she knew. I dropped the flame onto the oil-slick puddle. Fire caught fast, licking across the surface, crawling toward the ledger. Brother Knife screamed and dove forward, trying to grab it, but the flame snapped at his sleeves. Hargreaves cursed, reaching too, but pulled back. Sato let out a strangled sound. "No!" he yelled, and in that moment his focus broke. His hands jerked under the truck, and the timer's seconds seemed to scream. "Stop!" I shouted. "Don't touch!" Too late. A click, faint but deadly, sounded from beneath the chassis. Hong screamed. I grabbed her, shoved her behind the sandbags, threw myself over her. There was a flash, a concussive boom that punched the air out of my lungs, a rain of metal and splinters. The truck lifted, twisted, slammed down. Heat washed over us, then smoke. My ears rang. I tasted dirt and blood. For a moment the world was only ringing and rain and the smell of burning fuel. Then shapes emerged through the smoke. Men sprawled, coughing, shouting. The explosion had been smaller than a full. Cargo detonation, perhaps Sato's partial disarm had triggered only a charge, not the full payload. Or perhaps Shen's plan had included a failsafe. Either way, the blast had blown the truck's underside apart but hadn't leveled the street. People were hurt, some dead, but the city hadn't ignited. Not yet. I lifted my head. The ledger, what remained of it, was a charred mess in the puddle, pages blackened, samples burning like tiny flags. Brother Knife lay on his side, one arm limp, his suit torn. Hargreaves staggered, face smeared with soot, shouting orders hoarsely. Sato was on his knees, staring at the wreckage, his face blank with shock. Hong coughed beside me, eyes wide, alive. I grabbed her hand. "Run!" I rasped. She looked at me as if to argue, then saw the men struggling back to their feet, guns still in hands. She nodded. We ran into the rain and smoke, slipping through an alley before anyone could regroup. Behind us, I heard Hargreaves shouting my name, heard Brother Knife's men swearing, heard Sato's voice rise in rage. But Shanghai's alleys were labyrinths designed by desperation, and I knew them well. We ducked through a narrow passage, emerged onto a street where a tram clanged past as if nothing had happened, passengers staring in curious boredom at distant smoke. We kept moving, blending into the city's flow, two wet figures among hundreds. Only when we reached a quieter lane near the old city wall did we stop, gasping. Hong leaned against a brick wall, rain streaming down her face. She started to laugh, soft at first, then harder, until it sounded like sobbing. "You burned it," she said, breathless. "You actually burned it. Not all of it," I said, "but enough. Enough to make them all your enemies," she said. "They already were," I replied. She stared at me, and in her eyes I saw something like relief, tangled with grief. "People will still die," she said quietly. "The gangs will still sell poison. The police will still arrest students. The Japanese will still push." "Yes," I said, "but maybe not tonight. Not with that incident. Not with that ledger as a weapon." She looked away, jaw tight. "Shen wanted you to do that," she whispered. "He wanted the ledger destroyed." "Or he wanted it used differently," I said. "We'll never know." Hong's lips trembled. She wiped rain from her face with the back of her hand, smearing makeup. "I used to think I could sing and stay outside it," she said. "I used to think the club was a bubble, that the music could keep the war out." She laughed bitterly. "But the war walks in wearing tuxedos." I nodded. "Shanghai's wars always dress well," I said. We walked, slower now, through streets that smelled of wet stone and fried dough. At a corner, a newspaper boy shouted headlines about clashes, about negotiations, about foreign troops. The city churned on, indifferent to individual dramas. We reached the tea house again. Madame Gao opened the door, looked at us, then at the soot on my coat. "You brought fire," she said. "But you also brought the girl," she added, almost surprised. "I kept my promise," I said. Madame Gao snorted. "Promises are not currency here," she said, but she stepped aside to let us in. Upstairs, in the small room, Hong sat on the bed, shivering. I lit the small stove, made tea with shaking hands. The silence between us was heavy now, filled with everything we hadn't said for years. Finally, Hong spoke. "They'll come," she said. "Hargreaves, Brother Knife, Sato, if he's alive." "They will," I said. "Then we can't stay," she said. "No," I agreed. She looked at me, eyes searching. "Come with me," she said suddenly. "Leave Shanghai." The words hit me like a door opening onto bright light. For a moment I imagined it, a ship downriver, the city shrinking behind, the smell of smoke fading. A place where my name wasn't a compromise, a place where Hong could sing without being a pawn. Then reality returned like a slap. "Where?" I asked. "Hong Kong," she said. "Manila, Singapore, anywhere the guns are farther." "And when the guns follow?" I asked. She swallowed. "Then we keep moving," she said. "We become ghosts." I stared at my hands, at the faint stain of soot under my nails. "I don't know how to be a ghost," I said. Hong's laugh was soft, sad. "Victor," she said, "you've been a ghost for years. You haunt both worlds and belong to neither." The truth hurt because it was familiar. "If I leave," I said, "someone else takes my place. Another man who translates lies. Another man who takes bribes and pretends it's stability." "And if you stay," she said, "you'll die here, or worse, you'll become Hargreaves." The room felt too small again. I looked at her, really looked. The girl I'd known was gone, replaced by a woman who had survived Shanghai's appetite and still had the courage to want something better, even if she didn't know how to get it. "I can get you out," I said. "Tonight, before dawn. I know a riverman who owes me. He can take you to a steamer." Hong's face tightened. "And you?" she asked. I hesitated. In that hesitation lived my entire life. "I stay," I said finally. "I have debts here." She stared at me and I saw anger rise, then fall into resignation. "Always debts," she whispered. "Always Shanghai." I reached for her hand. She let me take it, but her fingers were cold. "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be sorry," she said. "Be different." We sat like that for a while, listening to the city's noise seep through thin walls. Distant sirens, a shout, a tram bell, the muffled thump of something heavy far away. Shanghai breathing. Near dawn we moved. Madame Gao arranged it with her usual efficiency, not because she cared about romance, but because she cared about balance. Too much chaos brought bad business. A riverman with a flat face and quick eyes met us near a small wharf in the Chinese city, where sampans bumped like tired animals. The Huangpu's surface was dark, reflecting faint lights like broken jewelry. A steamer's horn moaned somewhere, deep and lonely. Hong wore a plain coat, hair tucked under a hat. She looked like any other woman trying to escape Shanghai's hunger. That was the best disguise of all. At the edge of the wharf, she stopped, turned to me. "If you ever leave," she said quietly, "don't look for me." "Why?" I asked, though I knew. "Because if you look, you'll find trouble," she said, "and because if you find me, you'll bring Shanghai with you." She stepped closer, and for a moment the air between us held the old heat, the old ache. She touched my cheek where she'd slapped me, fingers gentle now. "You still have that look," she said, "like you think you can bargain with fate." "I bargain with everyone," I said. "Fate is just another gangster," she replied, and smiled faintly. Then she leaned in and kissed me once, quick, not soft, not forgiving, but real. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. "Thank you," she whispered, and I didn't know if she meant for saving her life, for burning the ledger, or for finally choosing something that wasn't just survival. "Go," I said. She nodded, turned, stepped onto the sampan. The riverman pushed off, the boat sliding into the dark water. Hong sat low, a shadow among shadows. Within moments, she was swallowed by the river's breadth and the city's smoke. I stood on the wharf until the sampan was gone. The morning light began to seep into the sky, pale and reluctant, as if even dawn didn't want to show its face in Shanghai. Somewhere in the distance, artillery thumped again, a reminder that the war hadn't ended because two lovers had made choices in a back alley. I turned my collar up against the damp and walked back into the city. On a street corner, a newspaper boy shouted that negotiations were ongoing, that troops were repositioning, that order would be maintained. Order, stability, mercy for those who could afford it. I thought of the burned ledger, pages curling into ash, samples of red silk turning to black. The cipher was gone, but secrets had a way of reweaving themselves in Shanghai. Give the city a week, and it would stitch a new one, finer and harder to see. As I walked past the boundary stones that marked where foreign law began and Chinese law ended, I felt the old familiar split inside me, the bilingual fracture. I could still hear Hong's voice, be different, like a melody that refused to resolve. Hargreaves would come for me. Brother Knife would come for me. Sato, if he had survived, would come too, because men like him didn't forgive losses. They only adjusted their methods. The city would keep carving itself into concessions and syndicates, flags and knives, jazz and shells. And somewhere, on a river that carried both silk and corpses, a woman in a plain coat would be moving away from Shanghai's appetite, carrying a part of me I couldn't translate into any language I trusted. I reached my office as the city fully woke, the trams clanging, the rickshaws rolling, the vendors shouting, the refugees still walking with their bundles and their blank eyes. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and closed it behind me. On my desk, waiting like a final joke, was another envelope with no stamp. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single red thread and a note in neat English. You chose her. Now choose the city. I sat down, stared at the thread until it blurred, and listened to Shanghai's roar outside. 1,000 tongues speaking at once, none of them telling the truth, all of them demanding an answer.
A shadow moves, the moon stands still. Lantern flicker on the windowsill. Shanghai whispers, secrets tight. The jaded glimmers, ghostly light. Oh, the jaded, it calls my name through smoke and mirrors, a deadly game. A love that lingers, a past betrayed, and all for the whispers of the jade. Gunpowder scents in the midnight rain. Footsteps echo a distant train. A face half hidden by a veil of red. 1,000 lies in the words unsaid. Who do I trust when the city's amazed and the nights are long and the truth decays? Oh, the jade, it calls my name through smoke and mirrors, a deadly game. A love that lingers, a past betrayed, and all for the whispers of the jade. Her lips like poison, her eyes like fire. The truth she weaves, a web of desire. One kiss could kill, one kiss could save. But who holds the power of the jade?